Bien, Caro, ¿querés continuar vos?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So in this case, I'm gonna share a specific experience with Educación Sexual Integral that I had at secondary school. So here is general information about the school. So this experience happened last year during the pandemic. That's why we had virtual lessons, and that's why we had one class one day per fortnight, and it was 1.5 hours with a break in between. That was the time of the lesson, right? This happened in Escuela Técnica número 1 de Ingeniero White, and it was in Sexto Primera. And well, la orientación was química or chemistry, and the number of students was 20. But approximately 8 students connect to the virtual lesson, or connected in that case in the past. Well, so the idea of this sequence, this was a very short sequence. We planned it with my partner, Ariana Añasco, and we had only 3 lessons to do this sequence. So this is the final task that we thought. Students will choose a witch from the fairy tales worked with and write down 2 paragraphs with the following information. The first paragraph will contain an explanation from the point of view of the authors of the fairy tale, and the second paragraph will contain an explanation from the point of view of the true story of the witches. Students can invent what could have happened to that witch. So we worked with the concept of witches in the past and in the present. Besides, we were close to Halloween, like we are now. So we thought it was appropriate to work with this topic. And besides, the students have worked with stereotypes, had been working with stereotypes before. So we thought that this was connected. At first glance, you may think that this is not connected with ESI, but it is. So I took this quote from Cuadernos de ESI. I don't know if you know them, but they are great. There are 2 of them. And, well, let me move this. There. It says, en las instituciones educativas de nivel secundario, la educación sexual integral incluye el desarrollo de saberes y habilidades para el conocimiento y cuidado del propio cuerpo, la valoración de las emociones y de los sentimientos en las relaciones interpersonales, el fomento de valores y actitudes relacionadas con el amor, la solidaridad, el respeto por la vida, la integridad y las diferencias entre las personas y el ejercicio de los derechos relacionados con la sexualidad. También promueve el trabajo articulado con las familias, los centros de salud y las organizaciones sociales. So, why this quote? Because, como plantearon previamente, como planteó Sherry previamente, la educación sexual integral incluye mucho más que simplemente hablar sobre prácticas sexuales, ¿no? Por ejemplo, la valoración de las emociones y de los sentimientos en las relaciones interpersonales, cómo juegan nuestras emociones y sentimientos al momento de relacionarnos con otras personas. Y respetar a los demás. There is a message. There. Well, so what we took into account, what happens when you go to the law, cuando abren la ley van a encontrar que se encuentran diferentes, digamos, normativas para trabajar en distintas áreas curriculares, pero inglés no aparece en esas áreas curriculares. Lo cual tiene sentido porque la idea sería trabajar a través de CLIL, Content and Language Integrated Learning, or ICLE. So what we did was to work from that point of view, right? Using that framework. So we took into account some of the things that were created for social sciences and natural sciences. taking into account that this orientation was chemistry, right? So, estos son los 3 puntos que tuvimos en cuenta para el desarrollo de esta secuencia, que es task-based, as you could see. So, el análisis crítico de las diferentes formas de ejercer la feminidad a lo largo de la historia, el análisis y comprensión sobre las continuidades y cambios en las formas históricas de los vínculos entre las personas, la indagación y análisis crítico sobre la construcción social e histórica del ideal de belleza y del cuerpo para mujeres. Esto, como pueden ver, está sumamente vinculado a cómo nosotros nos relacionamos con otras personas y también a los estereotipos. Natural Sciences. La indagación y reflexión en torno al lugar de la mirada de los o las otras. El reconocimiento de la discriminación como expresión de maltrato y la producción y análisis de diversos textos que expresen sentimientos de soledad, angustias, alegrías y disfrute respecto de los vínculos con otras personas. Well, these were the outcomes. Trabajamos con, como venía contando, con una comparación entre las witches de los fairy tales y las witches in real life. Sobre todo teniendo en cuenta que se ha escuchado mucho la relación con las brujas en el movimiento feminista que toca de lleno a los adolescentes. Entonces, explicar, bueno, por qué se mencionan las brujas. Why? Like, are they related to fairy tales? Why are they mentioning witches all the time? And we compared the witches in 2 fairy tales, Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, but in the original stories created by the Grimm brothers. And then we compared them with the real witches, and the witches in real life. And these were the final outcomes. So as we said before, or as I mentioned before in the final task, the students had to create, or were expected to create, 2 paragraphs. So the format of the paragraphs were in an Instagram post. The idea was to create an Instagram post to spread these ideas, right, to the rest of the community. And these were some of the final outcomes that we got. Well, as regards linguistic contents, we clearly worked with past simple and present simple, mainly past simple in this case. And well, here you can see the comparison of one of them. Snow White's Witch was the most popular one, it seems. And some of them didn't create posts for Instagram because they didn't have time, but they created the paragraphs. So that was great. And we also asked students for their feedback. Yes, we wanted to know whether this sequence was, or these activities were important for them, whether this topic was important for them. So we created a Google Forms after the sequence, and we collected the answers. There were only 2 answers because, as I said before, it was pandemic time, so maybe it was more difficult to reach students. Well, here you can see that they learned a lot of new things, and this comment says that what was most interesting, for this person was the topic about in real life. And here we have another comment that says that the activities influenced this student's life. Specifically, he or she, I don't know who this person is, says, sí influyó en mi vida, aprendí más. Hasta estas últimas 3 clases yo no sabía que las brujas eran las personas que hacían cosas curativas. Yo a esas personas las llamo chamales y creía que las brujas eran cosa del diablo. Pero gracias a estas clases cambié de parecer con respecto a ellas. So it is this thing, right? De construir el estereotipo y asociar cómo se fueron formando los estereotipos que a nosotras como mujeres nos están todo el tiempo interpelando en la actualidad, ¿no? Porque esto, el tema de tratar a las witches, a lo que se conocían como witches en el pasado, que en realidad no es que tenían superpoderes, como seguramente muchas de ustedes saben, sino que eran curanderas y estaban en íntima relación con el conocimiento. Fue un estereotipo que, si bien ya no usamos la palabra bruja en ese sentido, sino que está más ligada con esto de las fairy tales, si bien se fue modificando el uso de esa palabra, sí se sigue ligando a la mujer con el conocimiento, que está en relación estrecha con el conocimiento, como no algo tan positivo, ¿no? Esto de, bueno, la mujer, bueno, está bien que estudie, pero que también tenga su familia, que no se dedique completamente a eso. Sigue estando este estereotipo presente. Y sobre todo se ve en las fairy tales, que utilizan la palabra bruja también como algo bastante negativo. Well, here I have the videos. Nosotras lo que hicimos fue crear cómics con las historias originales de los fairy tales, de Hansel and Gretel and Snow White. Then I can share them. No creo que los pueda mostrar compartiendo pantalla, me parece, así que después los puedo compartir por el chat. Y también lo que hicimos fueron videos, ¿no? Para incorporar la multimodality in the lessons, porque queríamos llegar a los estudiantes a través de las distintas herramientas digitales. So, well, that was all. My experience was a specific experience in a specific sequence, but I agree with what my colleagues mentioned before. We should apply these concepts of ESI to every activity, or try to apply them to every activity that we do, because it is, as mentioned before in the quote, un contenido transversal. So it should be present in all of the activities that we plan, in all of our plannings. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, friends and colleagues. I didn't have a presentation. I do not have it. But I wanted to talk about some things that we consider we can teach comprehensive sexuality education through some topics, like, for example, biofuels. And this is something we did with Geraldina. We planned a lesson in which we were teaching biofuels for a 6th year in with the chemistry orientation. And, well, how can we teach comprehensive sexuality education using that topic? And there is an issue there which deals with the use of biofuels and also food. So if we have a discussion about why are we growing food, or why are we growing crops, if to use them as fuel or to use them as food, and why the food prices are rising, and all that content, let's say that we are talking about comprehensive sexuality education, even if we are not talking about sex. As you mentioned before, ESI is not about sex only. And the keyword is integral, educación sexual integral. Integral is the keyword because it has to do with everything we do. As Sherry said, we teach from our own sexual body. And we teach people with their own sexuality, their own bodies, and we cannot separate that. So, for me, teaching ESI, the keyword always being integral, has to do with that. As Agustina said, it is part of my teaching. I teach English and I teach ESI and as they are together. They are not different. They are all parts of the same thing. So how I teach it? Well, in every single class, I think, because there is always a mention about something, whether it is food, whether it is means of transport, whether it is a story we're reading, even if it is a story about, I don't know, a man we've read around the world in 80 days at school with my second year students. And we discussed whether the princess needed rescue, whether the cultural habits or cultural routines are present for all of us. Some students bring to the class the idea of people from Kabul. Some students bring ideas about people from the Arab world, but that is something that happens here in Argentina. When we talk about human rights and we talk about slaves, we are not talking about, I don't know, people from other parts of the world. We are talking about slave work. We are talking about women and boys being kidnapped for sexual favors. We are talking about women not being able to access education in some parts of our country. We are talking about many other things that we think we don't have here in Argentina, like people from other countries being treated differently and being abused with their work rights and their sexual rights because they are poor or because they are from neighboring countries. So what I mean is that we don't have to go into a week of the ESI like we sometimes have at school, but we have to work every day with ESI. And that was all I wanted to share with you.
Wow, I found everything so interesting, so enriching. I've been working with you for so long now, and I'm still surprised by how cool you are. I learn more from you every day. I completely agree, as you said before, as Jerry mentioned before, and as Carol mentioned, that comprehensive sexuality education is always there, whether we address it or not. And I strongly believe it's our job to see what issues and in what way we are addressing them. Okay, whether we are teaching the present simple with a very grammatical approach, well, the sentences we use for that practice will tell people a lot about ideas that we have, or sometimes that we copy from a book and sort of do it automatically, unconsciously, but somehow we are sending messages. So I invite all of us to open our eyes to the messages we are sending and how those messages can be way more open-minded, right-friendly, and encouraging to a better society, right? This will be all about me, and I think we could...
Les recuerdo que está abierta la inscripción para el club de lectura. El próximo viernes 12 de noviembre estará Claudia Ferraras para charlar sobre Poetry and Practice of Empathy. También hay una charla coorganizada por APIBB y el Centro de Exalumnos del Instituto Juan 23 sobre infancias y adolescencias trans. Yo quería, con respecto a la charla de hoy, quería decir que siempre que empezamos o vemos o participamos de una charla de ESI, siempre tenemos que volver al marco legal. Y eso dice mucho también de nosotras, ¿sí? Y de nosotros como profes, que necesitamos continuamente estar recordando a las personas que están con nosotros o recordándonos a nosotros mismos a veces también que existe un marco legal y lo que estamos haciendo lo dice la ley y no es porque nosotros tenemos ganas de andar diciendo cosas que no corresponden. Creo que el mencionar que tenemos un fundamento y que la ley nos obliga y nos ampara en este sentido es importante. Y bueno, ojalá dentro de unos años no haga falta volver al marco legal, porque todos sabemos que lo que estamos haciendo corresponde a lo que dice la ley, ¿sí? No sé si alguien más quería comentar algo más. Miriam, todo tuyo.
Hola, buen día. Me quedó porque en realidad es una cuestión que ahora están haciendo los chicos más de lo que es adolescencia, es que he, o sea, cuando están addressing, están haciendo he, she. Y me dijeron los chicos que en algún caso, cuando todavía no están ellos definidos, dicen they.